Hello and welcome to the channel. The genre of arcade games hit its popularity in the 20th century with the advent of games like Space War and Computer Space, creating a new space of competitive and skill-based gaming that made the gaming industry what it is today. And even if they have gone mostly extinct with arcade games being collected nowadays, we can still learn what was it that made arcade games good. The game that started everything, Space War, a game in which you and another player try to destroy each other's ship while avoiding an asteroid in the middle of the map, introduced the idea of outsmarting the other player using simple mechanics, as for example, using the gravitational pull and push of the asteroid to speed up the motion of the ship and avoid enemy rockets. Entering hyperspace, you also avoid a hit but at the risk of reappearing randomly near the asteroid in the center of the map and dying due to the gravitational pull. In Galaxy Game, a game similar to Space War, the notion of resource management was introduced by reducing the fuel and rockets the ship had down to 5. This change increased the complexity of the game and made it more enticing to plan ahead instead of shooting and moving aimlessly. In Computer Space, another game similar to Space War, the player versus player mechanic was removed entirely, and instead you have to survive for as long as possible against the enemy AI by destroying a pair of sources that would respawn every round. The game introduced the idea of score tracking, which kept track of how many times the player died versus the enemy, and the time tracker that kept track of how long the player has been alive. The golden age of arcade games introduced many of the game genres that in mechanics we associate with a good arcade game today. Pong was the first successful arcade game in which you and a friend simulated a match of tennis by having two balls move up and down, and whoever had the most points at the end of the match won. In Space Invader, a game in which the goal was to destroy increasingly challenging aliens for as long as possible, extended the scoring system introduced in Pong and added the idea of the highest score at the end of a game session as a way to gauge and compare your skill performance to another player, even if that player was not there with you. In Pac-Man, a game in which the goal is to generate the highest score by eating the dots on the level while avoiding the ghost chasing him, introduced the idea of limited time, which pressured the player to finish the level before the time ran out. If the player did not collect the dots on the board before the time ran out, the game would end and take the player to the leaderboard screen where they could see their performance score against other players. Leaderboards are very effective in keeping the player invested in the game. They continue playing and improving their skills until they reach the first place on the board. In Donkey Kong, the idea of precision as a skill was introduced. The goal of the game is to go up the ladder and save the princess while avoiding or destroying the barrels thrown down by Donkey Kong, which generated points. In Frogger, the goal of the game is to move the frog to the frog home at the top of the screen as fast as possible while eating flies along the way for bonus points and not dying. Patience and timing was the name of the game, as the point was not to let the frog die on each trip home. Arcade games are good because they have simple mechanics, are easy to pick up in a day, but have a steep mastery curve due to the level design. The prospect of becoming the best player in the game is also something that keeps the player sticking to the game. If you are planning to build an arcade game, keep in mind how can you build a game to have simple mechanics but a steep mastery curve that allows the player to master the game and show off their skills to the other players through the leaderboards.